The projected economic life of the Cook Inlet gas field is through 2033. Even under our most optimistic scenario of replacing natural gas with renewable power, Chugach will be a significant consumer of natural gas in the near future and certainly still in 2028 when our long-term contract with Hilcorp expires. Explain your philosophy for developing a strategy to secure a gas supply for Chugach from 2028 through 2033 and possibly beyond.
Well, so Hilcorp has said that they cannot offer an opportunity for long-term contracts. I think maybe that means they have short-term gas. I agree that, even if we bring on more renewable energy quickly, we're still going to be needing gas for a long time. We can put all of our money on trying to, explore Cook Inlet gas and hope that there are more discoveries made. We can put all of our eggs into the North Slope gas and hope that that gets built and that outside investors come to the table for that. But that feels like a riskier move to me because in the end, if those projects don't pan out, we haven't put ourselves in a better position. So, I do think that we will need gas and that might be importing that. But that gas and those legacy hydro projects are what will allow us to more easily integrate renewable energy. And I'll add that the contractor that Chugach Electric has hired to look at the gas imports, they've said, if we are able to bring on renewables more quickly, we could stave off importing gas for years, maybe not 10 years. We're still probably going to need to import gas, but it means that we can keep that local gas going longer and maybe even use that for heat, which is harder for us to transition. So I think there's some opportunities here. It's not, black and white options. We do have some different options, and I'm excited to hopefully work with Chugach to look at those. I'd also like to see what those rates are. I don't think I've been privy to the cost estimates for importing gas, and that will tell us a lot about what we can do once we kind of get those estimates, because then we'll be looking at apples to apples. Thank you.
Brad.
Okay. So there's no question that we will need to augment our gas supplies. When you look at, because one of the options we would like to take advantage of is if we can build up renewables at some point that can offset some of the gas demand that we might create. But in Cook Inlet, we have some challenges. Right now, there is a very favorable tax structure for the explorers out there, and so as we move forward, we hope that we can discover that the operators in the basin can discover some additional gas. We hope that they can become more efficient in producing that gas. That can help to defer. But our options then are potentially importing LNG, and we have to look at that very realistically. And that is a long lead time project. There's an LNG facility that was for export down on Nikiski, and that would be the logical place to bring LNG in. We don't want to do that. We want to minimize that, but that is something we have to look at very seriously. Possibly importing gas from another basin. The North Slope is a great option, but it has to probably move forward fairly quickly, or that won't be the best option for us. So a combination of expanding our renewables and reducing some of our gas demand, and then negotiating a new contract with the producers out there. And we do have an advantage compared to the other utilities because we do own a majority share in the Beluga gas field. So we're in a good position compared to the other utilities. We need to work with the other utilities in the rail belt. There's a Black and Veatch study going on right now that will help us to identify options.
Thank you. James.
Yeah, it's a hard reality, right? Within the next 5 years that we need to be in the best position possible. But I think that the work the board's done so far has definitely started that process. I guess I'm a little bit more pessimistic from the standpoint that when we talk about starting projects to diversify our energy needs and the cost of them, that my experience has been they always seem to double, and that's in cost and time. So it could be really hard to get from there to here in the short amount of time we have. So I would say that we definitely need to focus now on extending our contract and getting that piece in place as soon as possible. I think also that the sooner we decide what that direction's gonna look like for our energy diversification, that the better off we're gonna be to have a plan to move forward on, and that the time is short on it. So that's work that the board needs to put in as a priority now, in so much that we can have direction for our executive management and working with all the stakeholders from the federal to the local level on what that'll look like for us going forward.
Thank you. Steve?
Yes, under the premise that Cook Inlet gas field may last till 2033, and knowing that after 2028 we don't have locked-in quantities of natural gas, I would say rather than wait for till the last minute, we should be dealing with negotiating our fuel prices across the board and our options with a sense of urgency, as I mentioned before, now rather than later. And this is likely to be more like a mediated negotiation than a friendly exchange of swapping, something that you have for what somebody else has at the same price with a given set of prices. It's the world energy situation's uncertain. We've seen impacts from the Russian invasion of Ukraine. We've seen problems with OPEC, and the energy markets are all affected by these factors. We ought to be entering into mediated negotiations or very well represented as Chugach members to have the right people at the table. And that means we can't ignore the fact that we heat our homes with NSTAR natural gas. And if there's not enough gas for both Chugach and NSTAR, and that's what we've been told by Hilcorp, it was fairly straightforward, the announcement, there's not enough gas for both of you. Code message was kind of like, look for price signals, Prices are not going down. Your avoided cost isn't going down. So I think that what we can see is convening these parties, also the state of Alaska, they've tried to subsidize things before, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, but we need the right people at the table, and we need our best minds at Chugach, and we need to get the landscape pretty much settled so we can do some long-term planning, and we can engage the staff, and we can get things done, because 10 years isn't that long a period. And that's when some of these price discounts just disappear. So I disagree, or I agree with Shana's points, and especially regarding North Slope gas. It's going to be set by the world price, not the price here in South Central.
I think my philosophy would be that I actually have a little fortune cookie saying on one of my coffee cups that says, make the best use of the assets that you have at hand to make the best decisions. And that's how I think about this as well for Chugach, right? What are the assets that we have on hand that we can utilize to prepare us for 2028? So think about Bradley, think about the Beluga River field. What can we do that we have a greater level of input on to make decisions regarding that? And then in that interim time, what investments can we make to help us transition to that 2033 year so that the decline in 2028, which I will say is significant and a little bit scary and daunting, and a conversation that we probably all should have been having many years ago. And in fact, we did have it many years ago. We have been here before in declining Cook Inlet gas, and more investments like some of the ones that you've heard about in this last round of questions should have been done. We should have made those. So now we're facing what could be a significant economic risk to South Central Alaska, as well as other utilities. as well. So my philosophy would be use the assets that we have now, stretch those assets out as long as we can to buffer the transition, but do not wait to make investments in the grid and in other clean energy sources that will get us there closer to 2033 when we see the steep decline. And then lastly, I would say, you know, we can always look at other ways to stretch out or make sure that we have natural gas sources. One thing that I really worry about, and honestly one of the reasons that I am running, is that we do not use this current cliff that we are approaching to lock us in to 20 or 30-year decisions that then will really restrict our ability to make better choices for the future. So I hope that that's part of the discussion. And again, this is why we need to engage our member owners, is that we need to get a much wider spectrum of opinions to the table about how we can solve this problem. And so as a board member, again, I would do a lot of that outreach. I would really encourage the cooperative to have town hall meetings on this very question so that we use all the ingenuity and innovation that is in the communities that Chugach serves. Thank you.
Bettina.
Thank you, Ashley. So my take on the natural gas crisis, and I'm going to call it a crisis, is it needs to be the #1 priority and is the #1 priority for Chugach currently. Not just Chugach, but for all of the utilities in Alaska. It truly is an issue that needs to be resolved, and it needs to be resolved in a very short time period. I know that you said that you asked the question, how will we secure the gas supply from 2028 to 2033? And we, in the Chugach boardroom, are planning for our solutions to be available by 2028. If you've read, that's when our Hilcorp gas contract expires. And if you've read the DNR report, we really need to solve this long-term gas supply solution within the next 4 years, which is one of the reasons that I'm running for re-election on the board. I think that I can provide a good value with my background in the oil and gas industry. I understand the problem, and what I would do to approach it is what we are doing right now. As soon as we heard in April of last year from Hilcorp that they wouldn't honor additional contracts, firm price contracts, we engaged our consultants, Black & Veatch, and Black & Veatch is going through and developing all of the options that we have available, whether it's in-state gas, a pipeline from the North Slope. We're looking at LNG imports. We're looking at every available option that we have, and we as a board need to be making the decision in the next 6 months to 12 months on what we're going to do to solve this crisis for a sustainable future. And natural gas is going to be around for a long, long time. We have a need with our current system and our current grid to have a long-term gas supply. So we need to develop the solutions, and we will use the information that our consultants are providing to us to make the best decision that we can to move forward.
All right. I'm just going to repeat the question again. So the projected economic life of the Cook Inlet gas field is through 2033. Even under our most optimistic scenario of replacing natural gas with renewable power, Chugach will be a significant consumer of natural gas in the near future, and certainly still in 2028 when our long-term contract with Hilcorp expires. Explain your philosophy for developing a strategy to secure a gas supply for Chugach from 2028 through 2033 and possibly beyond.
Thank you. So I did some research today. I was writing down some numbers, and just so you're aware, just what gas prices are. Right now, we're paying, based on the contract to Hilcorp, about $7.50 a 1,000 cubic feet. Compare that to the current gas price in the lower 48, which is a Henry Hub price, is $2.31. Now, that's a spot price. It's different than a contract price that we have with Hilcorp. But you get a difference of the scale of the amount of money we're paying for gas up here versus what similar customers are paying for in the lower 48. Liquid natural gas right now is selling for $11.24, and it's gone up recently all the way up to $16 a 1,000 cubic feet. So, you know, this whole discussion, we got to put it in the context of what you're going to pay for gas in the future, and then, you know, what the renewables cost. I think the answer to your questions from me, is first of all, we have to move aggressively towards renewables to the greatest degree possible with the limitations that we've already stated, like grid limitations, et cetera. I'm not naive. I know that we're still going to have to rely on some gas generation, and I'll be honest, we probably would, in the end, maybe even have to import LNG. But to the extent that we can limit that and save the money that we'd be paying for the LNG because we're producing more with renewables, it's going to save the ratepayers and our members money. Thank you.
Harold.
Okay, really good discussion and comments by the candidates here, and I would add to that, well, first of all, let me say, I do agree with Suzanne that what we really need is a short term, and we don't know what that term is, but it's certainly beyond 28 and possibly beyond 33, but we need a transition period and we need gas in there. A long-term solution is really needed. And as Bettina said, Chugach has a study going right now that will look at all these options. I won't repeat all of that, but we will have some really good information coming, and Black & Veatch is a internationally known gas expert consulting firm. So we are looking towards that, but the reality is a long-term solution is not, in my opinion, LNG. It's a pipeline. And will we get a pipeline? We don't know yet, but it's still a potential. If the Alaska AK LNG pipeline were to come in place, our gas prices would actually go down. So the real challenge is this interim period, is to find the best solution. I don't think any of us want LNG, but it may be the solution initially and for a period of time. But I truly believe that with the experience that we have on the board and the decision-making that we have, we will select the best solution for this interim period until we see if there's a better long-term solution that is more economical. So I think that it will happen, and I'm totally confident it will happen, and I think we will come up with a good solution in the interim.